If today everything feels a little heavier than usual, don't rush. Don't try to fix it right now. Don't conclude anything yet. That weight doesn't appear when you're lost. It appears when something is too close to be ignored. There's an almost invisible point where things don't move forward, but they also don't fall apart. Nothing breaks. Nothing ends. It just becomes denser. The body feels it before the mind. A strange pressure in the chest. A tiredness that doesn't come from physical effort. A low, constant irritation, as if something were out of place even when, on the outside, everything seems under control. Most people interpret this as failure, as if they've gone backward. And that's exactly where they sabotage themselves. Because this weight is not punishment. It's proximity. It's the kind of pressure that shows up when the space for improvisation shrinks. When easing off starts to cost more than holding steady. Acting the way you used to no longer works. And no one warns you when you reach this point. There's no clear sign. No external confirmation. Just the uncomfortable sense that certain choices no longer go unnoticed. If you're feeling this now, it's not motivation. It's not coincidence. And it's not a problem to solve quickly. It's a silent test. And it doesn't measure how much you want it. It measures whether you can sustain it. In the next few minutes, you'll understand what's being measured, why everything feels harder right now, and which small, almost invisible adjustment separates those who cross through from those who return to the same place they've always been. Stay here. The impulsive reaction is the test. What you're experiencing right now is not confusion. It's a very specific kind of phase. The problem isn't crossing through it. It's reacting the wrong way while you do. Most people lose exactly here. Not because they didn't try hard enough, but because they insist on the behavior that always worked before. In this video, there's no motivation. No long explanations. No generic advice. Only 3 things matter. First, why, when something important is about to move, the return diminishes and the pressure increases. Second, how to recognize, clearly, whether the moment you're living right now is a real blockage or the final adjustment before moving forward. Third, what is the only kind of movement that doesn't make you lose everything right when you're close? Nothing here requires extra force. No heroic attitude. No becoming a different person. What decides this point is a small adjustment. Behavioral. Almost invisible. And most importantly, you don't have to guess. There are clear signs of when this test appears. And there are predictable mistakes that make people return to the same place even after doing almost everything right. If you recognize these signs in time and avoid one specific type of reaction, the path doesn't get easier. But it stops sabotaging you. And that's what we're going to do now. There is a name for this moment. It's not a crisis. It's not punishment. It's an alignment test. It shows up when you ask for something bigger and actually begin moving in the right direction. At that point, life doesn't speed up. It pauses. Not to block you. To observe. And what it observes is not intention. It's pattern. The first sign is subtle. A withdrawal of response. Messages take longer. Replies become brief. The yes that once came quickly now requires waiting. Nothing says no, but nothing confirms. The second sign is the irritating delay. Nothing collapses. Everything just takes a little longer than it should. A bill that closes right at the limit. A deadline that slips because of a small detail. A door that doesn't open not because it's locked, but because something minimal is still misaligned. The third sign appears in the body. You wake up with the feeling that something is unfinished in the air. It's not full anxiety. It's vigilance. It's not fear. It's awareness arriving before comfort. The fourth sign is the sudden urge to relieve the pressure. To resolve things quickly. To over-explain. To accept less just to be done. Not because it makes sense, but because silence is uncomfortable. And the fifth sign is the most deceptive. Doubt. Not about the path, but about the timing. Maybe I'm late. Maybe now isn't the moment. Maybe I misunderstood. When these signs appear together, it's not confusion. It's inspection. The system reduces external stimuli to see whether you sustain the same behavior without applause, without urgency, without immediate confirmation. Here, most people misdiagnose what's happening. They think they need to change the strategy, when, in reality, what's being measured is whether you change the pattern. This test doesn't ask whether you want more. It observes whether you match what you asked for when the environment becomes neutral. And that's why almost no one passes. This is where almost everyone gets it wrong. Not because they did something wrong before, but because they misinterpret what's happening now. When responses slow down, when feedback disappears, when progress seems to stall, the mind switches into correction mode. It jumps to a conclusion too quickly. I'm going backward. And that thought is the mistake. Nothing has returned to how it was before. What changed is the type of test. Before, bad decisions passed with less cost. You made a mistake, adjusted, and moved on. The impact was small. Now, every concession weighs. Not on the immediate result. On the body. You feel it when you accept something and, minutes later, your body already knows you shouldn't have. That's why it feels like things are getting worse. Not because they are, but because you lost the old cushioning. Before, you could relieve the pressure without noticing. Respond quickly. Give in a little. Over-explain. Now, any misaligned adjustment creates a friction that didn't exist before. The mind doesn't recognize this as progress. Calls it regression. Then the wrong attempt to fix it appears. Not with courage. With shortcuts. Accepting something smaller. Just for now. Returning to an old habit. Just this once. Filling the silence with words you didn't even need to say. It doesn't feel like sabotage. It feels like intelligence. But it's the old pattern trying to stay alive at the exact moment it should collapse. The test doesn't pressure. It doesn't confront. It doesn't rush. It waits. It waits to see whether you'll react quickly or sustain the discomfort. Here, the mistake isn't failing. It's rushing. Because when you're close, what gets in the way most isn't the obstacle. It's urgency disguised as intelligence. Think of someone who decides to build something consistently. Not on impulse, but because they understood that this project needed to exist. This person shows up every day, publishes, delivers, follows through on what they committed to themselves. At first, there's response. A few views, a few comments, a sense of movement. Then, silence. The numbers don't drop, but they don't rise either. The effort stays the same. The return disappears. Nothing breaks. Nothing confirms. From the outside, it looks like stagnation. On the inside, negotiation begins. Maybe I need to change the tone. Maybe no one is seeing this. It's not a lack of talent. It's the absence of applause. And the mind confuses value with immediate response. When that signal disappears, the temptation to over-adjust appears. Change the style. Accelerate without discernment. Post anything just to feel a reaction. It doesn't feel like quitting. It feels like adapting. But something holds this person steady. They feel the urge to change, but they maintain the pattern. They keep showing up the same way. They deliver with the same care, even when no one validates it. They don't beg for attention. They don't abandon themselves to be accepted. Months pass like this. One day, something clicks. It doesn't go viral. It doesn't explode. It just clicks. The right people stay. The response begins to arrive in a more stable way. From the outside, it looks like luck. On the inside, it wasn't. That silence wasn't absence. It was training. Training to show up without applause. To sustain quality without incentive. To continue when no one is watching. that builds an invisible muscle. The muscle of not moving from anxiety, of not negotiating identity for relief. And when that muscle exists, the system responds. Not out of pity, out of trust. Deposits made when no one sees always pay later. And those who can't tolerate the delay rarely get to see it. It's almost never something big that's missing. It's not more effort, not more courage, not wanting it more. It's a small adjustment, precise, almost invisible. Think of an old door. You can push it with your shoulder all day. You can force it. You can insist. Nothing happens. Not because the door resists, but because a single pin is still misaligned. 1 millimeter off and everything locks. This is where many people get confused. They think they need to do something bigger, when in reality, they need to stop distorting what's already right. Sometimes that millimeter is physical. The sleep you've been negotiating. The tired body you keep ignoring. Sometimes it's behavioral. The tone you use when something doesn't go as expected. The rushed response just to end the tension. Sometimes it's silent. A small promise you started breaking without telling anyone. None of this feels decisive. But all of it adds up. The final adjustment is rarely heroic. It doesn't ask for spectacle. It asks for precision. It's holding a boundary when it would be easy to give in. It's responding with clarity when the impulse demands speed. It's not acting when acting now would pull you away from what you've built. When that millimeter aligns, there's no announcement. The door makes no noise. It gives no warning. It simply opens. And those watching from the outside call it luck. But those who were there know exactly which adjustment they finally stopped avoiding. Imagine an ordinary person. Nothing extraordinary. For the first time, this person decides to stop living on improvisation. They begin to organize their routine. Track small expenses. Take extra shifts when possible. Say a few uncomfortable no's to maintain a simple plan. Nothing magical happens. But something internal begins to solidify. There's less chaos. Less manufactured urgency. A little more breathing room in daily life. And then, just when everything seems more stable, the obstacle appears. Not as an epic challenge. As a setback. The car breaks down. An unexpected expense appears. A delay that disrupts the entire plan. The body reacts first. The urge to complain. To blame someone. To throw everything away and say, "What's the point?" This is the exact moment of the test. The old pattern shows up with a quick solution. Relax. You'll fix it later. Just this once. You deserve to ease up. It doesn't feel like self-sabotage. It feels like common sense. Before, this person would explode. Spend what they couldn't afford. Disorganize everything just to relieve the frustration of the moment. This time, something changes. They stop. They breathe. They don't fix everything. They don't control the scenario. They simply choose not to repeat the old behavior. They reorganize what they can. Ask for help where they once would have relied on pride. Maintain the boundaries they had decided to keep. Not because it's easy, but because now they know the cost of going backward. 2 days later, nothing spectacular happens. No miracle. No dramatic turnaround. But a solution appears from a place that previously would have gone unnoticed. A simpler alternative. Cheaper. More aligned. Not perfect. But sufficient. And most importantly, without breaking who they decided to be. That's how the test works. The obstacle doesn't measure how much pain you can endure. It measures whether you can avoid returning to the old pattern when the tension rises. The gain doesn't come because the problem disappeared. It comes because, this time, you didn't lose yourself inside it. And when that happens, something closes behind you. Not an external door. A cycle. And when a cycle closes, other paths become available. There's a clear difference between being lost and being dangerously close. When you're lost, the body accelerates. The mind races. Everything becomes urgent. When you're at the threshold, the chaos increases on the outside, but something inside you becomes strangely stable. This contrast confuses many people. The first sign is a strange calm in the middle of the noise. Not because everything is resolved, but because, even with a lot happening, you know exactly what the next move is. Not 10. 1. And those who ignore this often get lost trying to do more when they should be doing less. The second sign is a sequence of useful coincidences. Nothing grand. Nothing mystical. They're too small to impress anyone, but too precise to be ignored. Conversations that unlock something. Information that arrives at exactly the right time. Side paths that only appear when you stop forcing the door. Most people lose it here because they wait for big signs and dismiss the subtle ones. The third sign is the clean no. You begin to refuse things without a speech. Without long explanations. Without guilt afterward. And that's unsettling. Because for many people, chaos was proof that they were trying. Here, the common mistake is confusing peace with stagnation. It's not. It's alignment. The impulse to take shortcuts still shows up. The urge to fix things quickly continues to appear. The difference is that now you notice the impulse before obeying it. The body settles. The breath deepens. Movements become economical. You eat better. Sleep better. Speak less. Deliver more. Even without external feedback. This is the sign almost no one respects. Before the door opens, the body stops negotiating. Not because it gave up, but because it decided. When you feel calm where there used to be urgency, clarity where there used to be confusion, and boundaries where there used to be fear of loss, you're not stuck. You're exactly where most people ruin everything by not knowing how to wait. And that's why the next test doesn't come as an obstacle. It comes as an invitation. When you finally stop running, something tries to make you run again. It doesn't show up as a mistake. It shows up as a solution. Urgency appears exactly when your center starts to feel stable. And almost no one notices. Because it doesn't sound like fear. It sounds like intelligence. Like, it's better to deal with this now. Like, don't waste time. But urgency is not intuition. It's fear wearing speed as a disguise. It shows up when silence starts working. When you hold a boundary. When you stop explaining. When you don't move just to relieve discomfort. That's when it tries to pull you back. Picture this scene. You decided to respect your limits. Sleep better. Respond with clarity. Stop over-explaining. And then someone from the past appears. A short message. Familiar. Loaded with history. Hey, can we talk? The body reacts immediately. A familiar tightness. The urge to reply quickly just to get it over with. Not because you want to go back. But because the emptiness feels uncomfortable. Or another scene. You send a clean proposal. Fair price. Clear scope. Hours later, the reply comes. Almost a yes. But with an adjustment. Can you lower it a bit? Just this once. We'll fix it later. It doesn't feel like loss. It feels like opportunity. And this is where many people fall. Because urgency never asks you to destroy everything. It asks for a small deviation. A loosened boundary. An unnecessary rush. And the problem isn't the isolated gesture. It's the message it sends. Every time you give in to urgency, you teach the system that discomfort is in charge of you. That you negotiate when pressure rises. And the system responds accordingly. That's why so many people get close and never cross. Not because they lack talent, but because they sold the line at the wrong moment. Holding the line here hurts. You wonder if you overdid it. If you were too harsh. if you lost something. But watch carefully. When you don't give in, something changes afterward. Not immediately. Not with applause. The body relaxes. Sleep improves. The mind stops justifying. And at some point, an alternative appears. Cleaner. More aligned. Less costly. Not as a reward. As a consequence. This is the real test. It's not about doing more. It's about not doing what you've always done when tension rises. Because when you're close, the danger isn't the no. It's the rushed yes. In the end, the question is simple. Do you hold the line, or do you start running again just to avoid feeling the emptiness? Here, almost everyone knows what they should do. Few sustain it. And that's what decides who crosses. Now, this isn't about understanding more. It's about a gesture. Just one. In the next 24 hours, observe which move you feel tempted to make only to relieve tension. Replying too fast. Explaining what's already clear. Accepting something smaller just to be done. Chasing when silence would be stronger. That's the gesture you won't make. Instead, choose a clean movement. The one you would maintain even if no one were watching. Even without any guarantee of immediate return. A clear message. A boundary held. A lean delivery. Or simply, not acting when acting now would pull you off course. After that, stop. Don't follow up. Don't adjust. Don't correct the silence. Let the day breathe without you pushing. Because the real victory at this point doesn't arrive with spectacle. It arrives functional. Quiet. Almost too simple for anyone expecting something grand. A direct response. A clean opportunity. A door that opens without warning. If you made it this far, it's not to force the next step. It's to avoid ruining what's already ready to happen. Hold the line. The rest moves on its own.